On February the 19th, the campaign against climate change will go to Downing Street to protest against the government's plans for a third runway at Heathrow. Modern Movement is organising a counter-demonstration in support of airport expansion. Alex Hockley, co-founder of Modern Movement, a group campaigning for faster, cheaper and better travel, is here to talk to us a bit about this campaign. Hi, Alex.
Hi.
Tell me about the campaign and why you support the additional runway at Heathrow.
Well, I co-founded Modern Movement with a group of friends who are mostly students and young professionals. And what really prompted it was a real frustration with the way things are going now in the debate over flying, over airport expansion. Loads of people are made to feel guilty about flying and that we should stop all airport expansion, all development, and really reduce the numbers of people who fly. And I think that's really a problem. What we want to counter is a small number of green campaigners who are making a lot of noise on this issue and making it seem like reducing the number of people who fly as the kind of the biggest struggle of the century. And actually we want to counter that and really argue with the majority of people who aspire to travel, who love travelling, and who only want to have more of that, actually. So we want to kind of make a strong argument against the moralisation of flying, against seeing everything through the prism of carbon emissions, and really putting the idea of freedom of movement on the map and saying that this is a real important thing that we should value.
What about the people who are going to be displaced by this runway, people whose homes are going to have to be bulldozed?
Well, I mean, I'm sympathetic to those people and they should receive full compensation. But really, millions and millions of people in this country enjoy flying and take advantage of that. So there is real a positive benefit in developing that infrastructure. And let's not forget, any major development, whether it means building a new city, destroying part of a city to build a new one, building railway lines across the country, building motorways, building roads, they all involve some displacement and change. That change is actually a positive development for millions and millions of people. If you see it, there's been a huge increase in air travel over the past couple of years, which has been partly due to the fact that flights have become cheaper and cheaper and more affordable to more and more people. And it's only by undervaluing that freedom to be able to fly that something like a fairly run-of-the-mill infrastructure development seems like only a massive negative thing.
Okay, but what about the environmental issue and the issue of climate change? I mean, are you suggesting that cheaper travel is more important than the reduction in greenhouse gases?
Well, let's start from this point. I think that the way we really have to look at this is that the ability to travel, to see the world, to work abroad, to live abroad, to have other people come here is more important than dealing with climate change. I think that's a position we should start with. If you want to deal with climate change, we have to deal with that rationally. Really, it's ultimately about having enough development to be able to cope with whatever climate change throws at us. We have to put the emphasis on freedom of movement and what that affords people, which is to not have their lives determined by geography, to move around, to see different things, to go on holiday, which people have quite limited holiday time. There are greater things in life than reducing our emissions, I think.
But what about the science behind it?
Well, the science does seem a scary thing, and we constantly hear predictions of the waves coming crashing, people being flooded and so on. But actually, climate change science is an incredibly complicated thing. It's not entirely well understood, and there's significant debate amongst experts. The emphasis really has to be on having a more developed, more modern society to be able to deal with whatever it throws at us. Why is everybody focusing on flying? Flying only accounts for 3% of carbon emissions in the UK. Okay, that's growing, but it's still really minimal. Why is there so much focus on flying? That's odd. I think the reason for that is that previously flying was restricted to a real minority of very rich people. Today, it's something which millions can do. As soon as millions of people that have this freedom, loads of green campaigners jump on this issue as a problem. I think that just shows their hostility to mass travel.
What are the benefits of airport expansion?
Well, I think loads of people have been to Heathrow. You might yourself have been, and it's a real pain. Everybody knows this. Your bags get lost, you have to queue for ages, your flight gets delayed. Having an extra runway at Heathrow will reduce the strain on the existing two, which are currently running at something like 97% capacity. But actually, I think part of the problem is that the whole argument for the third runway has been purely economic, and actually that misses out something quite important. What Modern Movement is trying to do is put the idea of freedom of movement on the map and say that that's important. What that means is that we should be able to move about, to travel cheaply, to see different things, to travel the world, to take holidays, and to really not have your life determined by geography, to know the world beyond your own backyard. And that's something that often gets missed out in these debates. It's posed as a debate between those who are cared about the planet and the earth and humanity against the kind of narrow, mean interests of big business and the government. Actually, we're missing something out really important there, that aspect of modern development, of building runways, of having more flights, is actually a really positive thing, and it's something that's enjoyed by millions and millions of people. People continue to vote with their feet to take millions of flights every year, and that's something that we should really push for and continue to expand for millions of people.
So people who are perhaps less flush with money now would be able to travel more, at least in the UK. But what about the argument that says that climate change caused by air travel, etc., would be detrimental to the most poor people on Earth?
Flying's contribution to climate change is pretty minimal. But even leaving that aside, I think that question sort of gets things the wrong way around. Most people in the third world aspire to the things that we have, to be able to fly, to be able to move here, to emigrate here, to travel the world, to generally have the same modern amenities that we have. Development is not just about being able to cope with climate change, but to have more freedom, more time to do other things in your life. I think to suggest that we should fly less works in a sort of framework where it means that third world countries should remain poor and never develop and never have the things that we have, which goes really against the aspirations of millions of people across the world who want what we have, and indeed more. And why shouldn't they? It doesn't help them, and all it does is really reduce our own freedom here in the UK.
Okay, and you promise you don't work for Ryanair?
No, I don't. I don't really care about Ryanair. In fact, I don't think they stand up strongly enough for the freedom to fly. They're just a corporation. All they're interested in is making profits. And sometimes that doesn't mean expanding air travel, but actually reducing it because it can raise prices, whatever. If you want to nationalise Ryanair, go ahead. I don't care. I think the priority really has to be from the more freedom to fly, to expand flight and travel, and all that brings to more and more people across the world.
Thank you, Alex. WORLDwrite is heading to Parliament with Modern Movement to celebrate world travel and the freedom to fly, and to take a stand for cheaper, guilt-free travel. Please do join us on February the 19th between 5:30 and 7:30 at the East Footway on Parliament Square.